The day Caleb Hart bought the cabin, he believed he was purchasing silence. After 47 years of droughts and debts, broken fences and broken promises, silence felt like the only luxury he could still afford. The real estate listing was Vagramote Mountain Cabin, sold Aziz Saitan Sin, but Caleb didn't ask questions. He wired the money from his old ranch, packed his truck with tools and canned food, drove north until the road turned to gravel, and the world seemed to forget his name. He expected dust, cobwebs, maybe mice. He did not expect a woman. Caleb pushed open the cabin door. The hinges groaned like they were warning him to turn back. Instead, warm lamplight spilled across the porch, and the smell of coffee fresh, real coffee cut through the cold air. Inside, a woman stood frozen. Near the fireplace, a cast-iron skillet clenched in her hands. She was beautiful in a quiet, unpolished way, her dark hair loosely tied back, her eyes sharp with fear and defiance all at once. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Two strangers, each believing the other didn't belong. I bought this place, Caleb finally said, his voice rough from years of shouting over wind and cattle. He lifted the folded deed from his jacket like a peace offering. I didn't know anyone was here. The woman didn't lower the skillet. I've been living here for 6 months, she said. I didn't know anyone owned it. The silence that followed was heavier than the mountains outside. Her name was Alina, she explained in careful pieces, like someone used to having her words doubted. She had fled the city after a life that collapsed all at once, a marriage that turned cruel, a job that vanished, a system that told her to wait while everything she loved burned down. The cabin had been abandoned, or so she believed. The lock was broken, the windows cracked. She fixed what she could, hauled water from the creek, chopped her own wood. It wasn't comfort, but it was safety. Caleb listened, his eyes tracing the odd, rough-hewn walls, the handmade shelves, the neat stack of firewood by the door. This wasn't a squatter's den. This was a home, her home. I'm not here to throw you out, he said at last, surprising even himself. He had come to escape people, not collect new problems. Yet something in Elena's tired strength reminded him of himself years ago, fighting to keep a ranch alive when the world had already written him off. I didn't know. They agreed on a temporary truce. Caleb would sleep in his truck that night, and in the morning they would talk, like adults, about what came next. That night, under a sky crowded with stars, Caleb stared through his windshield and wondered when life had stopped being simple. He thought of his old ranch, now sold off in pieces, and the quiet that followed when the last cow was loaded onto a trailer. He had come here to disappear. Instead, he had been found. Morning came with frost on the grass and the smell of bread baking. Alina handed him a mug of coffee without a word, as if this strange arrangement had always existed. They sat at the small table, sunlight cutting through the cabin like hope testing the room. Caleb offered her time 3 months to find another place. Alina didn't argue, but her eyes flickered with panic she tried to hide. He saw it, and something in his chest tightened. He knew what 3 months felt like when you had nowhere else to go. Over the following weeks, an unspoken routine formed. Caleb repaired the sagging roof and reinforced the porch. Alina cooked meals that warmed him in ways he hadn't felt since his wife passed 10 years earlier. They spoke little of the past, but shared the present meals, storms, long evenings by the fire. Trust grew quietly, like roots beneath the soil. The first real conflict came with winter's warning. A heavy snowstorm trapped them for days. The road buried, the world reduced to white and wind. When the power line snapped, panic crept in. Caleb was used to isolation, but Alina wasn't. She paced the cabin, memories of being trapped resurfacing in shallow breaths and trembling hands. Caleb didn't try to fix her fear with words. He lit lanterns, stacked wood, and sat with her until her breathing slowed. In that silence, something shifted. Why? She wasn't alone anymore, and neither was he. As weeks turned into months, the question they avoided pressed harder, Lena found. No other place she could afford? Caleb, meanwhile, realized he no longer wanted the silence he'd come seeking. The cabin felt alive now, filled with laughter and purpose. But ownership was ownership, and kindness didn't erase legal truths. One evening, Alina placed an envelope on the table. Inside was a handwritten agreement Trent she couldn't really afford, but insisted on paying. "I won't be charity," she said quietly. "I need to stand on my own." Caleb nodded, respecting her strength even as it hurt him to accept. He signed it, knowing full well he would never cash a check. The turning point came in spring, when a stranger drove up the mountain road. Alina went pale the moment she saw the car. Her past had followed her ex-husband, bitter and demanding, claiming she owed him everything she was trying to rebuild. Words escalated. Threats followed. Caleb stepped between them without hesitation. His voice steady, his presence immovable. "This is my land," he said, "and she's under my protection." The man left, but the fear lingered. That night, Alina wept not from weakness, but from release. Someone had chosen her safety without. Being asked in the days that followed, Caleb made a decision that terrified him more than solitude ever had. He rewrote the deed. He didn't announce it with grand words. He simply placed the papers in front of her one morning, his hands steady, his heart racing. "I bought this place to run away," he said, "but you turned it into something worth staying for. I don't need much anymore, just someone to share the quiet with." Alina stared at the papers, tears blurring the ink. This wasn't rescue. This was partnership. She accepted not because she was saved, but because she was finally seen. Years later, the cabin stood stronger than ever, smoke curling from its chimney, laughter echoing through the trees. Travelers would sometimes ask how a broken-down rancher and a woman with nothing built such a life together. The answer was simple. They didn't buy a miracle. They built once, lowly, bravely, together.